Freedom, man. That's what it's all about. You've got to groove on freedom, like the good book says.
Welcome. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening. This show will discuss the topics of human consciousness, mind control, natural law, the occult, and all issues that affect the freedom of the people of Earth. What on Earth is Happening will endeavor to shine light upon the darkness of our world and to offer empowering solutions to the problems we face as humanity approaches its critical moment of choice. And now, here is your host, Mark Passio.
Welcome, one and all. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening here on the Oracle Broadcasting Radio Network. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. The network's website is oraclebroadcasting.com. Today is Sunday, September 23rd, 2012. Of course, this show is live every Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m. East Coast time. That's 4 to 6 p.m. Central time. We have a good show planned for you here today. It's going to be yet another all-call-in show on the topic of the non-support of dominators. The non-support of dominators, a topic that we have been covering over the last several weeks here on this show, and we're going to be taking your calls on this topic today. I'll give the call-in number right now at the top of the show. The call-in number is 866-841-1065. Once again, the call-in number for the show, toll-free, 866-841-1065. The topic is the non-supportive dominators. Anything that we have covered in this section of solutions on the show is fair game to talk about here today on the show. There is one prerequisite for calling in only if you want to call in to defend the practice of carnism, which we talked about as one of the forms of domination, which I talked about as the ultimate expression of domination, in other words, meat eating. And if you want to call in to defend that practice, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But if you want to call in to defend it, the prerequisite for doing so is that you will have had to have watched the movie Earthlings, the documentary film Earthlings. If you haven't watched that film, I'm in all honesty, not really interested in hearing what you have to say in defense of carnism. If you have watched that film, I'll take your call and hear your defense of this immoral practice. But if you haven't watched it, I feel like you don't really understand what you're even defending. You have not seen firsthand what you are actually advocating. And therefore, I feel like someone in that state of consciousness, in that state of ignorance, really doesn't have much worth saying. So if you've seen Earthlings and you want to defend carnism still, feel free to call in and defend it with that being the prerequisite that you've seen that documentary film from beginning to end. Okay, in one sitting. I'm talking about sitting down and actually watching that documentary and really taking it in, not watching 2 minutes of it and then deciding it's too difficult to get through and putting it down. Okay, so the call-in number is 866-841-1065. Event announcements. Let's get these out of the way, and then I want to start in by talking about one of the events that just occurred, the End the Fed rally here in Philadelphia. So the Free Your Mind Conference, of course, coming up here in the city of Philadelphia in 2013, going to be the biggest event of 2013 on the East Coast probably. Free Your Mind 2 is a conference on consciousness, mind control, and the occult here in Philadelphia, April 25th, 26th, and 27th, 2013. The location is the beautiful Arch Street Meeting House here in Philadelphia at 320 Arch Street. The doors will open at 8 o'clock a.m. each day, and the featured speakers now: Alan Steinfeld, Alfred Weber, Andrew Bashago, Ben Stewart, Bob Tuskin, Curtis Davis, Dr. Dream Mark Peebler, Freighter X, Freeman Fly, Jan Irvin, Jay Parker, Jim Fetzer, Joseph Meyer, Laura Eisenhower, Lennon Honor, Loren Moret, myself, Mark Passio, Ross Ben, Sonia Barrett, and just added, I did not even get a chance yet to put their information up on the Free Your Mind Conference website, but just added to the Free Your Mind 2 conference, Larkin Rose and Randall Carlson. So we're thrilled to have Larkin and Randall as part of the Free Your Mind 2 event. I wanted to make an even bigger, what I would consider an even bigger event announcement than that regarding who we're going to have coming and speaking at the conference. We have not been able to fully confirm the presence of a couple of individuals I think people are going to be really excited about, but hopefully I will be able to make that announcement by next week, or actually by the week after, because next week the show will actually be a replay. I'm going to be replaying the show that I did, the interview that I did with Laura Eisenhower from 2 weeks ago, because next Sunday I will be speaking at the MUFON PA East Coast Conference, which brings us to our next event announcement, the MUFON PA East Coast Conference. I'm going to be speaking at this event on morality and disclosure, the moral issues involved in the cover-up, the continued cover-up of extraterrestrial phenomena. The MUFON PA East Coast Conference will be taking place September 28th, 29th, and 30th, 2012 at the Sheraton Bucks County Hotel, 400 Oxford Valley Road in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. The speakers, in addition to myself, are John Ventry, Frank Ficino Jr., Sue Switek, Karen Dolan, Stan Gordon, Travis Walton, Rob Switek, Grant Cameron, Richard Dolan, Stephen Bassett. For more information on this great conference coming up next weekend, visit www.mufonpa.com. That's MUFONPA.com. You can also visit mainlinemufon.com and click on the annual conference link where you can get speaker bios and an event schedule. So, the ad-free chip-in effort has been going absolutely phenomenally. I thank everyone who has made generous contributions, and please keep up that effort to keep the What on Earth is Happening radio show for the 2 hours of the show ad-free. The ad-free chip-in effort chart has been reset for the next 3-month period. We will need to raise approximately $1,000 by January 31st, 2013 to keep the show ad-free through the following 3-month period of February, March, and April. Regarding the Free Your Mind Conference, we do still need contributors, and we still do need people who are willing to help to organize this event. So if you're in the Philadelphia area and you want to get involved in helping out logistically with the Free Your Mind Conference, please do get in touch with me at mark@freeyourmindconference.com or mark@whatonearthishappening.com. Donations would be very much appreciated. We haven't really got many donations. We collected a little bit at the first fundraiser. We're going to be having other fundraisers event here in the local area, but if you're not from the local area and you want to make a contribution to the Free Your Mind Conference, which is very expensive to put on a conference and fly people out from all over the country, get a venue in a metropolitan area, lodge all the speakers, it's something that we have a couple of benefactors who are helping us with, but we definitely could use some donations coming in from people. If you want to make a donation to the Free Your Mind 2 event, please visit the Free Your Mind Conference website at www.freeyourmindconference.com. Click on the donations page. There you can send an email and you will receive instructions on how to make a donation to the conference. Buying tickets in advance is probably one of the best ways that you could actually make a donation. I mean, I would consider that as good as a donation. We want to get ticket sales as far in advance as possible, because we could then use some of those proceeds to help pay for the speaker transportation and lodging. So getting your tickets in advance will really help us out, and we would really appreciate if people can make their plans as soon as possible to attend and get the tickets that they are going to need as soon as they possibly can. With that having been said, the End the Fed rally here in Philadelphia took place yesterday on Saturday, September 22nd. And I have to say, great job to everyone who was involved. As people know, the last End the Fed rally that took place, I had some, constructive criticism to give, because I felt that there were things that could have been done better. And I think at this one, a lot of people stepped up, picked up the ball, ran with it, and really improved the effort. There was less people out at this event, and yet I still feel it was more effective. The organization was well done. Congratulations to Michael Heiss, Mike Salvi, doing a great job in the organization of this event. And the march was done very effectively. It was at a good pace. It wasn't rushed. And people brought out flyers. We outreached to the public. I've never seen more people take this information from us than at this rally. And I'll tell you another reason I think it was is, and we commented on this at the rally, there were the Ron Paulers did not really come out to this rally. It was all focused on the topic of ending the Fed. It wasn't about supporting a political candidate. You didn't see a lot of Ron Paul signs in the crowd. You saw people who really had knowledge about what the Fed is, how it's a total financial fraud, how it's a Ponzi scheme, and they were there to stick to that topic. It was a focused effort, and that's what made it effective. And when we reached out to people on the street, they didn't see it as, well, this is some kind of a political campaign, and who cares about that candidate? They saw it as, what are they trying to tell us, about this institution? And I'd say about 90% of people who I reached my hand out to with a flyer with information about this fraudulent institution took that flyer out of my hand, and I've never, ever seen that high of a percentage of people who were at least open-minded enough to want to receive the information. It was usually about a 50-50 split in the past, maybe even a little bit less than that. About 90% of people took information about the Federal Reserve systems, at least out of my hand, who I tried to hand it to yesterday on the street here in Philadelphia. And that was an encouraging thing to see. I also gave a talk at the event, and that is up on YouTube. I will probably post it to my site in the coming days. So that's the event announcements that I have. Let's see if we have anyone on the phone yet. Let me go to the call center here. Yes, we do have some callers. So again, the topic, the non-supportive dominators, open lines for the rest of the show. Here we go. Area code 480. Area code 480. You're live on the What on Earth is Happening radio show. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much. I've been listening to you for about a year now, and I want to thank you for your rhetoric. Everything that you've been putting out really sinks in with everything. I just want to ask you if you're familiar with the term aquaponics. Not hydroponics, but aquaponics.
I have heard of it, but I don't know how much I know about it. I know that I've read into it a little bit, but why don't you tell the listeners what it really involves?
Okay. Aquaponics is a closed loop of water. It allows you to raise fish, and all the nutrients from the fish water get sent to your plants and your vegetables. The root systems clean the water and send it right back into the pond. So it's a closed loop.
Interesting.
No matter what climate you're in, no matter how big of an area you're dealing with that you have, even if it's a balcony, you can be connected to your own food source. And as I've been listening to the carnism versus vegetarian, I also want to just say not a lot of people are calling in and arguing with you about this, are they?
Well, I would suggest that we might not get very many people to argue the point because of the prerequisite that I set. And what I have noticed,
right,
is that those who defend the practice won't sit down and watch Earthlings, or they haven't.
Right.
And if they did, their position will magically, almost magically, change, because they are really seeing firsthand what this practice involves.
Right. And the reason why I really want to get the thing across about aquaponics is, if you eat meat, and you want to start in aquaponics, you can raise tilapia. That's the most popular thing to do with aquaponics. There's and you can still eat meat, but I think this would be the way that we as individuals in our communities can start, telling our neighbors, hey, no matter how much space you got, you can do this. You can be connected with your food source. We can start, start on this track to where, just getting our families involved in the actions of doing these things, that we need to more and more. I think just like Ivan out in Phoenix, last caller from last week, he's putting together a website. He's out in Phoenix. I'm out in Mesa, out here in Arizona, and we're trying to do, it seems like the same thing, put together a nice fashion package for everybody of resources and solutions for the people that are on the same page, and just keep moving ahead. It seems like there's miracles right around the corner, and my daughter, she has leukemia, and we're almost through with her treatments, and we're hoping to have everything going on our side of town as far as our backyard and being connected with our food source, and so we don't have that happen again. Right now we're dependent on a lot of things, just like everybody else, and we just got to keep chipping away, and it's there. And I really can't thank you enough for putting all this out there. I can't, I get frustrated every day, but it's just you have to keep going.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the call. And what I would say regarding raising fish is I wouldn't look at that as any different than raising any other kind of animal for consumption. However, one of the points I think that could be taken from this is that we do need to be around our own food. I think part of the problem that we're facing in society as far as dependency goes is that food is grown well outside of where we live, and then it's trucked in from outside, and that uses way more energy, way more resources, makes it more expensive. We need to be growing food around where we live and, walking past our food on a daily basis. That's really what a smart society would be doing. And doing it in the city, it makes it difficult. There are challenges associated, but there's a lot of different techniques for people who want to do this, and they're researchable and they work. And if more people started doing them, then it would kind of become an organic process that would become easier and easier to do. The problem is so few people are engaged in that practice. I can tell you, we do have a little garden in our backyard, but to step it up to the point where we can get the volume of food that we need, it's difficult to do. And it's expensive to do as well. So we need to engage in practices that are kind of distributed, and a lot of people are engaging them and helping out the effort. There's a lot of information about this online. You could even just look up on YouTube, growing food around where you live. There's projects and communities that are getting behind efforts such as that, and I think that's definitely really important, and it takes us away from dependency and domination, because food is one of the biggest dependencies that there is, and that's what the dominators ultimately want to control. So good points brought up by the previous caller. Let's move on to the next caller. Caller from the 813 area code. You're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome. What do you have for us?
Wow, thanks so much for taking my call, Mark. And I'm sure I'm speaking on a lot of people's behalf and just saying, man, so much gratitude for what you're doing. Your show is definitely listening to it from the first podcast to the last one. It's just it's been an ongoing spiritual experience for me, and I really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to point the finger inward if that's okay.
Sure.
One of the alchemical green language words that I heard is the word mirror clue, in that the word mirror clue actually means miracle. And one of the reasons I really resonate with your show is because, I was in the same spot too, where I had to face my own reflection in order to stay alive. It was either I had to change or it was going into the grave. But man, as soon as I faced myself, and came to grips, man, I got better. And to say, I'm a little bit nervous right now, so sorry if you hear my voice shaking.
No problem. Just take your time.
But, yeah, man, I mean, the place in consciousness that I was before I went through that process, and that, I used to wish that the United States would just go over to Iraq and make it a glass parking lot. Just total, just dark place that I was in. But man, as soon as I started facing myself, I got better. And just like you said, and I remember a few podcasts back, you said it's all about self-analyzation,
yes,
self-disclosure, and amending the past, and that's it.
Part of what I brought up in the speech that I gave at the end of the Fed rally yesterday was that admitting that we are wrong is not a weakness, it's a strength. Being willing to look at oneself, say, no, my former actions were wrong, and I'm willing to make an apology. And the apology is actually changing the actions. It's not just about saying that you're sorry. It's about then actually reversing the course of your actions and doing something differently. So that's definitely a strength, and people need to see the admission of wrongdoing, the admission of a formerly poisoned worldview, and the actions that are based on that worldview. Being willing to say, no, that was wrong, and I can reverse my position, I can change my mind on that, then do something different. That is absolutely 100% a strength and not a weakness, and should not be looked at as such by people. The ego wants us in that condition where we can never admit that we are wrong. That is a weakness. That is what keeps us weak. That is what keeps us, held back from evolution and consciousness, and ultimately what keeps us enslaved.
Indeed. And I really got to say, man, I love the simplicity that you boil it down into, in that, we really don't have to go through all the conspiracy details about what's going on, and especially with the monetary system. We don't have to explain to people what happened at Jekyll Island and all that stuff. I mean, this money, it's violently imposed on us, right, and no one can argue with that. And to see that in your show, and you're able to convey that information to such a boiled down, it's just all about right and wrong. Yep. And it's all about facing our own reflection and treating other people the way we want to be treated. And the fact that you extend that into animal practice as well, man. I'm working on that, and I'm noticing immediate differences just in trying and staying away from meat. A couple of days a week, and just how much better I feel morally. And since I feel better morally, the actions that I'm putting into the universe, they're better grounded, and the universe will
respond. The universe will respond.
Exactly, and it's all about those mirror clues, man. I've been receiving those mirror clues now for a while, for about 8 years, and man, hearing your show has just definitely, it's refined. It's refined me. It's taught me so much, and like I said, man, I'm sure I'm speaking for a lot of people that aren't able to call in right now. But your show is it is so awesome, and I'm so appreciative of what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate you, sir. So thanks so much for the call, and you brought up a lot of good points there, because the truth is always simple. The truth is simple. It isn't about bogging people down with an overabundance of details. It's about getting down to the primary fundamental axioms of our belief systems and challenging them from that level. It's from a deep philosophical level that we have to look at what our deepest held beliefs are, challenge them, and find out if they hold true. And if they do not, they have to be let go. The attachment must be released from them. And that's what people have a difficult time doing, because they've been so used to staying in that belief system that they don't know what else there is. They're in fear of abandoning that, because then their thinking goes to, well, what else is there? What, if I don't accept this, what is real? And that's a very insecure feeling for most people. We have to always take it back to the philosophical fundamental axioms. When we get down to the very base foundations of a belief system and analyze it from there, take a deep look at it from there, that's where we're going to get to the heart of truth. And ultimately, as this past caller said, that's all about looking into oneself. That's about looking into the mirror is what that's about. So great points, great call. Thanks for the call. Let's go on to another caller. Here we go. Caller, you are live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome. What do you have for us?
Hello.
Yes.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for doing the show. It's a great show.
Thank you.
I kind of have it's kind of like almost like a news tip, almost like it's not for the faint of heart, and I would say that it rivals Earthlings in its scale.
Okay.
But it's I would describe it as like a cultural phenomenon. I kind of stumbled upon it accidentally because I found you on YouTube, and YouTube is really great for all sorts of enlightening information, but they're also really great for spreading carnism as like a pure satanic religion. And there's a group that came on about 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And they do these. Their main demographic audience is I would say from college age students to 10-year-olds. And what they do is they like get pounds and pounds and pounds of meat, and then they like craft it into things, and then they like act like they're cannibalizing it, like they're mad zombies and stuff. And I think it's actually related to the bath salts incident, as well as possibly the shooting that happened in Colorado, as well as some of these other incidents that are happening where people are just going crazy, because I know these people are. It's really weird because people don't look at it, they're like, oh, it's nothing, and it's just entertainment, but it's so much more than that. And it's actually part of I think it's part of a larger.
Yes, there is a ritualistic setting to a lot of these behaviors, and you just need to look into how much pharmaceuticals are injected into these animals, because of the living conditions that they live in, hormones as well, to make them bigger. It's unbelievable what we're taking in through a lot of this food, and people will say, oh well, then you just go to animals that aren't treated with hormones like that, or animals that aren't treated, with chemicals like that. Again, as we talked about last week, it's still a consumption of fear. Ultimately, you're consuming something that was taken through violence. So you're taking in the energy of violence through the field of energy, through the field of consciousness that we all live in. Mm-hmm. The problem is that many people refuse to acknowledge that interconnection. They don't want to acknowledge that we are not separate from our surroundings and from other beings around us. We are not 100% individuated. We are individuated expressions of consciousness, but that doesn't mean we're cut off from everything around us, and nothing that takes place around us doesn't affect us at a deep fundamental level. That worldview, that paradigm of separation is also what needs to be released. We need to release attachment that we are separate from everything else and from the surrounding field of energy and life that is all around us. We are part of that. There is no separation between us and that. And that's what this worldview healing is all about, is about understanding that oneness, that lack of separation. Too many people from a left brain perspective are caught in that paradigm of separateness. And to the extent that we're in that paradigm of separateness, we are also in the paradigm of enslavement.
Yeah, and man. Well, I guess I can go from, I was kind of being in a general sense, but specifically, mm-hmm. It's a YouTube, it's like the 11th most popular show on YouTube that does this, and I mean, I got their I got them pulled up on Wikipedia on just their list of episodes, but they've got like fast food sacrifice, and with that, they've got like the symbology of the upside down pentagram.
Wow.
They have
calling it that, huh? That's the name of it.
That's nothing. Like, they have pig face stew. They do live shows. Like, they were even on Jay Leno. So this is really like they're really, really dark, but it's weird because they're really popular.
They're kind of
if you even look at their
bringing it right up into people's face. You know, the whole ritualistic aspect of it, the satanic aspect of it. They're coming more and more out right into the open because society just, doesn't. They look the other way. They don't even care. They just accept it. It's like, oh yeah, it's just.
Well, some of them aren't even accepting. Some of them are accepting it though. Some of them are. They have. What I'm saying is they have a functioning cult. Like, if you go on their Facebook, they have like thousands and thousands of likes for this stuff. They have comments talking about eating children, and they literally have a cult, And another the video games and movies that are coming out too, like this Hunger Games, the Hostel movies, all these Saw movies that came out.
Well, I think the Hunger Games in particular is pretty allegorical about what we could be facing if we keep going down this path. Yeah. So I look at that film as like a warning. I think people should check out that film and the books because I checked them out. I read into them. And while, I thought, the ending of the third book to me, seemed anticlimactic. I was expecting something a little bit bigger, but aside from the literary aspects of it, I think it's still a great allegory regarding the path that we're heading down as a species into total serfdom, complete enslavement and serfdom if we don't wake up and realize what's being done.
I think it's worse than serfdom. Serfdom doesn't even begin to.
Yeah, it's a sacrifice ritual is what it is. They're sacrificing children in the Hunger Games. That's what they're doing. So, absolutely.
It's crazy. It's just the people that, what the show is called, it's on YouTube. It's called Epic Mealtime. And it's funny because it's abbreviated as EMT.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe EMTs are like paramedics.
Yes.
And it's really weird. It's like my sister came back one day with some homework talking about spying for the Obama administration. It was called FIA, but the FIA is like a Family Independence Agency. It was really weird, but they use these abbreviations. I've been noticing more and more to associate things.
Sure.
But
well,
if you
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, if you could check it out, because I've been trying to tell people about it and trying to warn people, but it's just I can't get any kind of a validation that I go to my Christian grandmother and I try to tell her that they say right on their thing that they're trying to create an antichrist, and she's just like, I guess it's just too much of a paradigm shift. You just can't take it. So
the more carnage, the more bloodletting, the more fear that's released, the closer they are. They feel that their belief system is they're going to absorb and direct that energy. This is part of the belief system in the dark occult, is that the energy of suffering can be channeled and then directed by them for their aims. Whether you believe that or not, that's their belief and why they continue to do the practices that they do. So I haven't seen these particular videos personally, but I'm going to definitely check it out on your recommendation, and maybe I'll comment on it on a future show. So thank you for the call, and I definitely agree that there's an entire ritualistic aspect and overtone, especially when you see these big, huge gatherings of these meat-eating festivals and wing bowls and things like that are all about, putting people into the mentality of just, animalistic consciousness and writhing in that, overgorging yourself on as much meat as you could possibly take into your body, before you burst. There's definitely a ritualistic overtone, and I think part of it is to keep people in base consciousness and base awareness, because that's what a degraded form of food and degraded practices like that will ultimately do. So thank you for the call. Let's move on to another caller. Area code 602. Area code 602. You're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome. What do you have for us?
Hello, Mark.
Yes.
Okay, this is Ivan from Phoenix.
Ivan, welcome.
Hi. Listen, today's show, if you hear a little bit of noise in the background, it's because I'm at work. So let me know if you can hear me clearly. If not, then I'll cut it short.
Not a problem. You're coming through fine.
Okay, good. Well, wow, where do I start? I have notes still from last week and more notes that I wrote today. And just listening to the first few callers here gave me a whole bunch of new stuff to ramble on about. Talking about that YouTube video influencing people or showing all this death and carnage and everything,
sure.
That touches on some of the notes I was going to bring up about movies. Something I noticed in films like Expendables 2 and Act of Valor and other films of that nature. They tend to show a lot of blood and, guts and everything of other people being killed, So if you're not American, and it's fine to blow them up and kill them and everybody's cheering and it's cool and everything, but the minute an American gets shot or killed, it's like, oh my God, then it becomes
films like that are reinforcing this insane notion of over-nationalism, like this excessive nationalism that everybody outside of America is bad, as if we're the good guys or something like that. And it's it's definitely an influence technique that is used by the military-industrial complex to actually get people into their way of thinking about, foreigners and other countries. It's taken them into this xenophobic attitude, and it's desensitizing them that these people are somehow not even human, that they're somehow, that it's okay or justified to treat them like that. So definitely that's part of the mind control system that is employed through film and Hollywood. And movies like that aren't allegorical in nature. They are there to actually get into the subconscious mind and program it. So definitely, I'm not familiar with those particular movies in particular that you brought up, but I can definitely tell you that's a technique that's widely used.
Right. And just recently, they re-released Raiders of the Lost Ark in IMAX, and I went and saw it. And I was surprised that this technique obviously has been around for a while, but I noticed it even in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Everyone who's seen Raiders of the Lost Ark is probably familiar with that classic humorous scene of that sword-wielding Middle Eastern guy that comes out, and Indy just kind of, grabs the gun and shoots him, and everybody laughs. And once I saw that, I was like, wow, even back then, just that subtle mind control, implantation there of, Americans, we can kill anybody else, and look, it's cool to do it, because we have the technology to do it.
Right.
Okay, and let me see, I was going to talk about apophysis and allegorical movies, obfuscation. You mentioned The Matrix, Planet of the Apes, Equilibrium, Hunger Games. I have put a few clips together on my own showing, that all this boils down to basically saying no to authority and no to reality.
That was another
way things are.
That was another big part of my theme at the end of Fed Rally yesterday, was saying no. And, I really put my lungs into it yesterday and, shouted the word no extremely loudly. That was heard all across the entire, historic area in Philadelphia here. So, that energy, that spirit is what we really have to take into ourselves if we're going to find the solution, because the solution absolutely does lie in saying no to authority, no to these false religions that are really holding us back as a species and holding us back from evolution and consciousness. They're false religions of authority and money. And at some point I want to talk about some interaction that I had with Dominators at the end of Fed Rally, because it was very interesting to see where their perspective still is. And I'm sad to report it's not good. It's definitely at a very, very low level of consciousness and in a very brainwashed state, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. So do you have anything else for us, Ivan?
Oh, I have quite a bit more, so I don't know if you want me to continue now or come back later, because I
Sure.
can stay on the line again today.
Yeah, that would be great. So I'll take another couple of calls, and then if there's a lull, I'll come back to you. And also, if there's a lull, I want to get into some of the interaction I had with dominators, particular dominators, at the end of Fed rally. It'll be an interesting story. So thanks for the call, and I'll definitely come back to you. So hold on the line.
All right. Thanks, Mark.
Great. All right. Let's take another call. Let me give in the call-in number again. The call-in number is 866-841-1065. Once again, the call-in number toll-free, 866-841-1065. The topic is the non-support of dominators. Anything that we have covered in this entire section on the non-support of dominators is fair game. Emotional mind control, the absolute nature of truth, solutions. What are real solutions? That a solution actually is something that dissolves the false self. It dissolves the ego and puts it into solution. That there is no political or legal solutions. That's an illusion. That these are false paths that people get sent down, and they're dead ends. They don't lead any place. They keep the control system going. The only solutions based in philosophy and natural law. We've talked about conscience and justification for people's wrongdoings, that they want to make endlessly. Apophasis, as Ivan just talked about, saying no as the ultimate solution. We have to say no to evil. We have to say no to wrongdoing and stop participating in it by knowing what our rights are and what they are not. We talked about moral culpability and karmic consequences on this show, and how at a fundamental level, the order follower is always more morally culpable than even the order giver. Not that they're not both morally culpable, but the follower, the one who actually carries out the action, is even more morally culpable than the one who whispers in his ear telling him what to do. We talked about trauma and bullying and the identification with abuser or victim as part of this very difficult to escape trauma and abuse victim cycle. We talked about the reasons for dominators' behavior, the concept of them being disconnected from the higher self, the concepts of groupthink and collectivism, and the techniques of cults. We explored how dominators ultimately want to abdicate and abandon their personal responsibility for their own actions. We went into the occult symbolism that is attached to the dominators through their uniforms and regalia. The occult mockery of the police and military. We talked about carnism as being a practice that is the ultimate expression of domination. And we talked about women's role and the powerful influence that they can have in the discontinuation of the support of dominators. If they step into that role, if they step up into it and own it, and how they could be probably the most powerful influence in that regard. So all of that's on the table for today. And again, the call-in number, 866-841-1065. Let's move on to another caller, area code 301. 301, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I've got in late on your show. It sounds kind of interesting, but what got me to call in is the fact that I went to in the Fed rally.
Okay.
And I heard that you went to one as well, and I naively thought, well, it was in Washington, D.C., where I went to mine. What city did you go to?
Philadelphia.
In the Fed? Where?
Philadelphia.
Okay, all right. And
how was the turnout in Washington?
We had about, David Kokesh was there with his megaphone and in front of the Treasury building, and we were there for about an hour. And with the people there with their signs. And
you mean Adam Kokesh?
Yes.
Adam Kokesh, yes.
Yeah, did I say his name wrong?
I think you said David. I believe you meant Adam.
Oh, yes, Adam Kokesh.
Yes.
And so people got up and took turns on the megaphone and, talked. And while we were there in front of the Treasury building, this big white SUV came by with the window rolled down in front of the street, and you could plainly see that the driver and the passenger side had you could see the buttstock of his submachine gun.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's an intimidation factor. I don't know.
Of course, they're trying to do that. They want to dissuade anyone they can through fear to get them to stand down. And you know what that is? That's a sign of their fear. See, when anybody knows that they're a liar and an abuser and a person who engages in violence and a person who is ultimately wrong and everything that they're about and doing is wrong, they have to justify that, and they have to try to defend that with violence because they're afraid of the truth. They don't want people speaking the truth. That's how difficult it is to defend the lie. Truth doesn't really need any defense of it. Truth stands as what it is, period, the end, and never ultimately goes away. Man can never destroy truth. Truth is indestructible. It cannot be destroyed. People can only ignore it for a certain amount of time, but it's still there. It's still always there. And these people hate the truth. They hate freedom. They love being slaves. They love their enslavement because what they're trying to do ultimately in their own psyche, they believe that it is possible to abdicate your own personal responsibility, and it cannot happen. It's not only that you can't. It's not only like you can imagine that can happen. It's an impossibility in the universe. It cannot occur. You cannot give up your personal responsibility. Even if you try to do it, you have not really done it. You can only make the claim that you're trying to give your responsibility away to someone else. That still doesn't make it the case. That still never makes it true. Even if you're claiming, I'm not responsible, I take orders, someone else is responsible, that doesn't make it true. You're still incorrect. You're still wrong. And that's what all these people who love this control system, love being slaves, love perpetuating slavery, because they don't want to do their own work on themselves. They don't really want to be free. They want to be told what to do because that's easier for them. And they think erroneously, incorrectly, okay, that they can somehow take their personal responsibility and hand it over to someone else, and that's impossible. They're attempting to do the impossible. They want to add, they don't like the fact that 2 + 2 = 4. They want 2 + 2 to equal something else, but it can't ever equal anything else. That's an eternal truth that exists at all times and places, everywhere in the extant universe. And, people will still try to make up, ridiculous nonsense about how that might work out in arithmetic, but not in other cases. Well, that's a semantical argument that a left-brain moron wants to try to throw in, some kind of the most ridiculous thing that might not conform to the rule, and say, well, then that rule doesn't apply everywhere. In arithmetic, 2 + 2 = 4, no matter where you're at in the universe. The end. That's the truth.
Sure.
And the same is true about responsibility. These people believe that they can hand it away, and that's all based in fear of growing up. They don't want to grow up; they want to remain eternal infants.
Well, you're right. Most people are lazy. They don't want to think for themselves. They want to believe the government propaganda, the government lies. These people that are in positions of minor authority think that somehow they're at the top of the heap and they're not.
Yes.
And this draconian, brutal police state can't be pulled off if people refuse to acquiesce.
That's right.
And turn on each other like rabid wolves.
Right. You're absolutely right, without any doubt.
And later on, when we're in front of the Treasury building, you've probably seen these big, huge armored cars that the DHS is coming out with. They look like Brinks trucks on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them and two black SUVs were right near this intersection. All 4 of them ran around in a circle, put on their sirens for about 10 seconds, and then pulled away. I guess another intimidation factor.
It's amazing that you experienced this down in D.C. because in Philadelphia, the police were extraordinarily cooperative with us and actually helped to steer traffic away from the rally marchers, so that there wouldn't be any altercations with cars. They helped basically ensure that there was good safety between the people who were marching up and down Market Street here in Philadelphia, and surrounding traffic, and that's what I think at best what should be their role, if they're even going to do that or be present at all. They actually performed the function that they should be doing, and did not attempt in any way to intimidate anyone here in Philadelphia. And as a matter of fact, they engaged us in conversation, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit in a bit. That didn't really go so well, because there's such an intelligence divide that it's sad. It's very, very sad that we're really talking about people who are so dumbed down that I actually feel pitifully sad for many of them. So, but at the same time, they were at least respectful, and I have to give that credit. As human beings, they were respectful of what we were there to do. So that was definitely a different dynamic between Philadelphia and Washington D.C. And I'm not happy to hear that that's how you were treated in the capital city.
Well, how many people showed up for your Philly rally?
I'd say we probably had about 100 people in the total march, which is also a pathetic number. But again, it wasn't about numbers. I think it was about focus this time. And, whereas we might have had a few hundred people last time, 200 or 300, I don't think it was nearly as effective as this time, because the people who showed up this time were quality, knew the issue, and were there to do some outreach to the public. And that's why I think it was quite effective. So, while we had small numbers, and I would like to see those numbers increase for people who really understand this issue and want to support it, it wasn't about quantity, it was about quality.
Sure. And then we marched up in front of the Federal Reserve Building, and I'm surprised that they allowed us to get this close. We marched from the public sidewalk up to the steps, nearly to the doors of the Federal Reserve Building, and we stood there in line and burned symbolic dollar bills,
right,
and just started, talking about the Federal Reserve, and there are like a half dozen Federal Reserve guards almost within arm's reach from us,
right.
A couple of them armed with submachine guns, and they just stood there and watched. The last time we went there, they wouldn't even let us get up that far. We were there for a few minutes.
How many people were at this rally?
Huh?
How many people would you estimate were at this rally?
About 50 or so, I would say.
Okay. So even maybe smaller than the Philadelphia crowd, which is not saying much. I mean, the Philly crowd was probably as light as it's been for one of these rallies in the past, and for even it to be less than that in Washington, that's showing us that there are not enough people who are actively getting involved, and coming out to support these efforts.
It's pitiful. I don't know how much good it does. We handed out pamphlets and some DVDs and stuff. But if I don't do anything, then I'll go nuts. And maybe I'm not doing the right thing. I know I'm not doing enough, but I feel as if I have to do something. And but can I talk briefly about movies?
Sure.
Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but
let me say something real quick about your effort.
Sure.
Do something. What you're doing. If you want to step up the effort and do more, great. Do what you're capable of, but do something. Don't just sit there and talk about the problem. Reach out to people. Definitely get involved. And if you're doing that, you can say, hey, I've contributed. I've done something at least. And another part of this, though, without even just doing something, do what you're capable of. Put as much effort as you feel you can into it, but keep it going. Sustained effort is what this is about. That's what will is about. Will isn't about making one big burst, effort and then stopping. That's not what's going to get this done, ladies and gentlemen. If you think that's how it's going to work, you're sadly mistaken and extremely naive. This is going to be about patient, sustained willpower. Sustained effort is what is going to be required. They say, slow and steady wins the race, and it's true. When the chains of slavery are going to break through constant, sustained pressure upon them. That's how we'll make them break. Not just one quick, burst, and then boom, snap, and then it's done. It's not going to happen like that. It's going to be, again, a patient, sustained effort where you may not see the results of your effort at first, But over time, if it's sustained, it's like enough people pushing on a fence or a wall with sustained effort and force and continuing to build and build and build, and eventually it goes down. That's what's going to be required here. So I just wanted to say that, and then you can get into your other point.
Yeah, well, I just wonder how many more times we can have rallies like this before the hammer's dropped on us with the police state. So I just don't know, with economic collapse looming and a possible World War III, how long are we going to be able to have this kind of...
Yeah, well, in all honesty, to be quite blunt, and I really don't care who's listening, I don't care who thinks otherwise for me saying this, at the point that free speech is shut down, then the revolution must go hot. That's all I have to say. Once you stop people from speaking, then it isn't about words anymore. It becomes about bullets. And that's all I have to say.
Sure, it's almost at that point now. But I want to talk about movies for a minute, because you mentioned them earlier, and how they can be used for predictive programming. And I pretty much have seen them all, from Mad Max to Soylent Green to... Have you seen the movie The Road?
Yes. Is that the one about the survival? About
yeah, the man and his son?
Yeah, good movie. Definitely, yes.
Good movie, but it's about as bleak as it can get.
Well, I think it makes a hopeful point, though, that there needs to be something that is even beyond our desire to survive, which is what the Son represents. Getting out of just the R-complex mind of based on survival that the Father represents, and the Son was about trying to treat people humanely. It is a very dark story, but it's all ultimately, that movie is actually about compassion. It's about keeping compassion alive, especially through dark times. And I think it makes a valid allegorical point. But yeah, it's definitely a dark movie, for sure. About keeping
the flame of humanity alive in a dire world.
Right.
But there's, and I don't want to take up too much time. I'm sure you get other people calling to your really fine show here.
That's okay.
But to get back, there's a new TV series on NBC. I think it's Thursday evening at 10 o'clock. It's called Revolution, and it opens with a EMP attack on the United States, where everything shuts down, all cars break down, circuits are down, the power grid is down. Then it fast forwards 15 years into the future, and it takes up with this one survivalist, very small community.
Interesting. Once again, real quick, we're coming up at the station break at the top of the hour. What is this show called again?
It's called Revolution.
Revolution.
And it's I saw it, you can go to NBC.com and see it at your leisure. I think they may have had one or maybe two shows so far. Now,
Caller, that's all the time we have for right now. We're coming up at the station break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. Today, an all-call-in show. This is the second hour of the show. The toll-free number to join us, 866-841-1065. Once again, the toll-free number to join us in our conversation on the non-supportive dominators, 866-841-1065. I'll bring the last caller back up to finish his point. Caller, you were talking about the show called Revolution, that is a new TV show that was about, it's partially about the loss of freedom that we're experiencing. Is that correct?
Well, it just basically paints a dystopic future where the population is heavily depleted, 90% loss after an apparent EMP attack, and about this survivalist community trying to get by between the militias and the roving bands of brigands that are in the area. And Jericho started out promising. I don't know if you saw that series, but then
I loved Jericho. I thought Jericho was a great allegory.
Well, I think, I'm real picky, I suppose, but I think it started out good, but they had some episodes that went into dead ends, and then it seemed like it wound up being like a post-apocalyptic Cheers, where people are sitting around in a candlelit bar drinking booze that comes from God knows where.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, there were definitely some, story writing issues and plot holes and things like that. But the main allegory was about, it was a false flag attack. The nuclear attack's a false flag. And think about it. The one bomb that did not go off, was highly symbolic, and I have no question in my mind that this was deliberate and symbolic. The one bomb in that TV series that did not go off, that was actually that the city was rescued from destruction, from nuclear destruction, by the main hero in the story, Jericho, was headed for Columbus, the name of the goddess, the dove. Columbus, Columbe means dove, and Columbus is named after the goddess figure, Venus Columbe, and Columbus represents the sacred feminine, or the heart, or care, the spirit. And that's what was being symbolically said there, is that, we need to rescue care. We need to save the sacred feminine. And that I thought that was very symbolic. And then they referred to these attacks as the September attacks, because they were false flags, and it's kind of like an allegory about the September 11th false flags that we experienced in New York and Washington. So I thought it was a good allegory, while, yes, some of the writing, could have been a little bit better there, and they also canceled the show and then brought it back. You can't forget that, too. I don't think they wanted people to see the nature of that allegory, and that's why, the probably higher level executives at these TV stations wanted that show put down. But the fans actually responded to it so well, they wrote in and wanted the story finished, and they got a few additional episodes for that second season and got them to finish the storyline. So,
yeah, the fan base got it a reprieve. But if you notice it too, like on the Fight Club, at the ending of the movie, you'll see high-rise buildings going down and a controlled demolition.
Sure.
The Lone Gunman episode, where the plane almost hit, So they basically let us know what they're going to do, Hey, thanks for letting me talk, and keep up the great work.
You got it, thanks.
And maybe I'll check in next week after you watch a couple episodes of the Revolution series and see what you think about it.
Great, sounds good.
All right, take care.
Okay, you too. All right, let's move on to another caller. Area code 703, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
Hello, this is David. I was curious if there's any way you can get the movie that's mentioned for prerequisite.
I'm sorry? Can you just repeat the question?
I was wondering, because before you had mentioned a movie that you needed to have watched before coming in.
Correct. Yeah, only if the caller wanted to defend the practice of carnism. It's called Earthlings. It has been posted to the podcast page with the previous two podcasts, the two podcasts that I did on the topic of carnism. And the movie link is directly there. Actually, you can also just go right to, I believe it's earthlings.com, or you could type right into a search engine, Earthlings movie or Earthlings documentary, and you can go right to the page and watch it for free right on their website, on the homepage of their website.
You guys don't mail those to people?
No, I don't directly mail it. It's available right online for free. So anybody can watch this at any time of the day that they want. Just go right up to the Earthlings website. I have it linked on my previous two podcasts, whatonearthishappening.com. You click the podcasts tab. And then for the two podcasts that I did on carnism, which I believe were, if you give me one moment, I'll tell you the exact podcast numbers. The shows that I am talking about were shows number 121 and 122. I linked, 121, 122, and 123. I linked the movie Earthlings in the notes, in the related videos notes for the podcast. So if you go to the podcasts tab of my website, shows number 121, 122, and 123 all have the links for Earthlings there. Is there anything else you wanted to comment on? Or any questions?
That was it. I was just wondering if there was any way you can get those.
Great.
Get the movie sent.
Okay.
So
well,
I could actually review it.
Well, absolutely. If you're interested in checking that out, that's how you can can go about doing that. If you just give me one moment, I'll tell you the exact address. I think it was earthlings.com is just the direct address. Let me just check that for you for a moment. And let's see. Yes, it's earthlings.com. 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 You could just go to that site and watch the movie for free. And I
was just wondering, because I'm awful busy with other projects we're working on.
That's the address. You can check it out. And good luck and brace yourself, sir. That's all I can say to the previous caller. So let's move on to another caller. Here we go. Art, you are live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
Mr. Passio, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm well.
Yeah, that Revolution, the pilot was not long ago, and I believe just a few days ago was the first episode of season 1, but I'm at NBC.com right now, and I don't see the season 1, episode 1 posted yet, so I don't know what the delay is on that. But
it sounds interesting. I mean, I don't generally watch television, but occasionally I'll download a show if it's allegorical in nature and check it out to see what moral lesson it may have. So it sounds interesting. Maybe I'll check it out.
Well, it's not what I originally called in about. I was just going to comment on it real quick.
Absolutely.
But it does show great promise, and I'm with you. I thought Jericho was awesome, and I agree. I saw Illuminati in your face. This is one possible plan we have for you suckers, kind of thing, you know. So
when you know how psychopathic when you know how psychopathic these people are, you know that they wouldn't hesitate for a moment. If it meant maintaining their control, they would go as far as detonating nuclear weapons in populated regions.
Absolutely. But anyway, what I called in about, what got my attention, I've been out building on chicken coops and stuff all day, but I came in just about like the last 15 or so minutes of the previous hour. So I didn't catch most of it, but what I did catch got me thinking. And you were talking about what it's going to take is, what'd you call it? Sustained
willpower. Yes. Preservation, sustained will, sustained effort. Yes.
Well, that got me thinking, you know, I remember when I was studying law, and I never did take the bar or anything like that because that was never my intention. My intention was only to learn the law and how to apply it to my own personal life and my family. But when I was studying law, we were taught to pay very close attention to case law and how precedent is set. And one of the things you look for are very specific, standoutish kind of quotes that the court will, you know, put in their writings. And you look at both the opinion of the majority and the minority. You have to look at both of them to see what they say to really grasp the full comprehension of the court's determination in the case. And I forget what case it is, but the court actually rendered in its determination that the only people, and I'm going to come to a point here, the only people who actually will ever, because I don't remember the real wording, the actual wording, so I'm just going to kind of summarize. But what they were saying was the only people who really can ever expect to receive remedy or find remedy within the system, within the court system, within the judicial system, are those who are willing to be literally a belligerent claimant in person. So when you talk about what it's going to take is sustained will and determination, if we take that the whole principle of being a belligerent claimant in person and apply it to that, I think you can be quite successful, because if you are absolutely belligerent in remaining free and sovereign, then your sustained will and determination is going to kick in naturally, and you're not even going to have to think about what you're doing. You just apply it in a very simple, logical fashion, and you can live a free and sovereign life with little or no effort whatsoever.
And I would also say that is an extreme point of view. The truth is extreme. It isn't about being wishy-washy. It isn't about going halfway. It's about 100% determination and extremity. You know, when people call me an extremist, I say thank you. That I wear that with a badge of honor. I wear that as a badge of honor. I am an extremist. The truth is extreme. It is not moderate. It is all one way and none of the other way, not even a little bit. The truth is that which is and does not waver from that which is. So I think there's a valid point here that we have to stand in the truth, which is all one way, and not be willing. That's belligerence. That's very belligerent. That's a belligerent attitude because it's total belligerence against the lie of authority.
Absolutely.
Now, I would like to say, I'd like to see us take it even one step further. Why would we even have to acknowledge that the court system is the only person or the only entity that can in any way allow us to be left alone? If we haven't harmed anybody and we know that in full knowledge, I have harmed none, and you don't have a right to a minute of my time unless I'm willing to grant it to you. I feel like if I have harmed none, I don't need to show up anywhere, to go through any hoops, to jump through one hoop to explain one thing to another person. Someone else does not have a right to my time, to my effort, to my will, to my money. I can apply that, but someone else doesn't say that I'm demanding this of you and you must show up at a certain place at a certain time. You know, if I've harmed someone, then that's a different story. Then, you know, I need to make some kind of restitution, and, you know, there could be even possible, retribution consequences coming my way if in case the fact is I've harmed somebody. But for that authority to just be placed in some court in that institution's hands, I still don't. I can't even bring myself to agree with that point. It's even like the idea that, you know, I'm going to file the right paperwork to become a, quote, sovereign citizen or to be recognized as a free man on the land. While I love the idea of having that status, the concept is we already have that status. That's already present. It's already the truth. The problem is that there's this illusory religion that other people believe in called authority, that they believe is vested in these institutions and in other individuals who are members of these institutions. That's the problem, is that lie and that religion is still present, and that's what has to be shattered to dust. So we get to a point we don't even need to justify anything to anybody. We don't need to try to prove something to anybody. If there's no harm being done by me to another living being, I need to be left alone by other people. That's the ultimate right that exists. That's the number one human right, is the right to be left alone, the right to be allowed to remain, exist, and live unaccosted so long as I have caused no one else harm to their person or property. And that's how simple we have to get it down to.
Yeah, and, you know, I have to laugh when I hear these people talking about, you know, you got to file this affidavit of intent and this and that and the other. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, hold on just a second. It's like, you know, and this is what I tell people, wait a minute, you know, this doesn't make any sense. You're telling me that I just can't simply stand here and look out there and say, look, I am a free man. You have no right or authority to come in here and dictate to me how to live my life, what to eat, what not to eat, what to drink, what not to drink, where to go, who to hang out with.
That's it.
Who are you?
The end. Nothing else. Full stop. The end. Nothing else. And that's, you want to know how humanity is going to be free? That's how it's going to be free, with that attitude. We project that attitude out into the world. Nothing can stand between us and our inherent, God-given, natural right to be free. Right there, you said it. Phenomenal.
That's it. That's it in a nutshell. But yet they'll sit there and they'll tell you, you know, just go read S510. You know, if you grow your own food and you got your own chickens for eggs and meat and you got your own cattle and goats, whatever, for milk or whatever, you are a criminal. Really? How is this working out for you? I mean, is this the hope and change you hope that you were looking for, America? Because I tell you what, if this is what if this is the hope and change you want, I want no part of this nightmare. This is absolute lunacy. Anyway, Mr. Passio, thank you so much for your time, and
thank you, sir.
Great show, man. I'm out.
Thank you. All right. let's move on to another caller. Area code 4. As a matter of fact, I'll pause here just for a moment because I do want to bring up, before we go to the other callers. Callers, please stay on the line. Be patient. I'm going to get to you. Lots of other people waiting on the line, so that's great that more people have called in. I want to just take a couple of moments to talk about the dynamic that I personally engaged at the End the Fed rally, because when we showed up, I immediately began talking to the police. And this is one of the things I think people need to do more and more, is like really just directly get involved in conversation with these beings, because until we change their minds, you know, things are going to be increasingly difficult, to say the least. We need to reach their minds and hearts, and you're going to see how much of a wall, how much of a divide is already built by years of indoctrination and by religion. And again, I'm not using the word religion in the sense of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Taoism, Hinduism, Buddhism, anything like that. I'm talking about the universal religions that they are so attached to, no matter what religious background they may come from. They are so attached to the religion of authority that it trumps their religion. And I'm going to give you an example. And I'm going to have some harsh words because I think it needs to be told as plainly and succinctly as possible and unapologetically. While as human beings, I can respect another individual, okay, and I could show them respect, in the role that these police are playing in the world, they are as dumb as a bag of bricks and a lot less useful. All right? And you could say, oh, that's being so harsh, that's judgmental. Yes, it is, on both accounts. It's harsh and it's judgmental. Those who have the knowledge have a right to say other people are really exceedingly dumb, that they are completely ignorant. You know? That's not a problem if you really do know better. You can look at a child and say that this child doesn't know as much as I do. They're very naive. And at this point, they're not intelligent. Intelligence is something that has to be built. It has to be built over time. That's why in the tradition of Freemasonry, it's all about the building of the temple within man. It's a process. It takes time to engage it. And it takes sustained effort to build a structure that is sturdy and worthy. Okay, so in engaging these police officers, one of the things, and maybe some videos will crop up on YouTube because we had a fairly lengthy exchange. In engaging them, one of them actually said to me, which I thought was an admission that, you know, I almost was like sad to hear him make it in a way, but at least he admitted it. He actually said, in just hearing you speak for a little bit of time, I realized that you are so much more intelligent than me. And he used the term intelligent. He didn't say intellectual, intelligent. I'm not even saying this to toot my own horn or anything. This has nothing to do with me. I'm talking about how ignorant the people who think that they know what they should be doing are, really, truly, and were admitting their ignorance. He said to me, one of the police officers I engaged at the End of Fed rally said to me, you are so much, your intelligence is so far beyond mine, and I recognize that it is almost like we are speaking two different languages, and I am having a hard time even comprehending the concepts that you're trying to get me to grasp. He admitted that to me with his own words, which, again, I thought was profoundly sad, and yet I had to at least have some respect because he at least admitted, I am not at your level of awareness. And that's the problem. I told that to him. I said, I respect you for saying that and admitting that, and therein lies the problem. That's the gap I'm trying to bridge. And I'm trying to help you to understand what I've already come to understand. Because if you and others like you don't come to understand it, we're going to be in a world of hurt, all of us. It's not going to be pretty, the eventuality that we're rapidly heading toward. And at least they were, the two gentlemen I engaged were willing to hear out a good bit of the philosophy that I was laying out for them. They didn't walk away. They didn't dismiss it. They were not dismissive at all. So I have to have respect at that level that at least they listened for a time. But the religion of authority has them in its grip. I mean, deeply. One of the things I was trying to convey is that no individual anywhere on the earth, or anywhere else for that matter, has the right to rule another individual. And I tried to keep it at a level of individual. See, the problem is they're so brainwashed and indoctrinated into collectivism that they can't even any longer conceive that there is actually really such a thing as an individual, and that's all there is. That this idea of a state or a group of people all wanting the same thing or deciding upon the same thing is an illusion. Yes, there is a whole of humanity, that is right now bound to this planet. But the point I was trying to get him to understand is that a right that does not exist for an individual can never be granted to a group or even other individuals, no matter whether people believe it can or not. So he could not intellectually grasp the concept that there is no such thing as the transference of a wrong. You can never grant a wrong to someone to do. That's an impossibility. It doesn't exist. You cannot do that in nature. You can say you're doing it again. It's like trying to abdicate responsibility. You can make the claim, I'm giving up my responsibility to someone else, but you haven't really done it. Actually, in reality, you cannot do that. It's not possible. Your responsibility is always yours and can never be given away. The same is true with right and wrong. A right always remains a right. A wrong forever remains a wrong and cannot be turned into a right. So I was trying to explain to these police officers that you believe in a religion that states that a wrong can be granted to someone else, and then they may be allowed to do it. And he couldn't grasp that concept because all he could think about is the collective, the people, the state. Somehow gives that power to certain groups, to a certain group of people within it. I even asked him, do you know where rights come from? And he got the answer immediately. He said, rights come from God, not man. He actually said that. And I said, well, how can you not then see that the very concept of authority is an attempt to elevate man to the status of God, to the place of God, to reverse those roles and say man is the authority. We get to make up what's right and wrong through arbitrary dictates called law. And he couldn't see it. The imagination was not open enough. His mind was at least open enough to hear some of my words, but not open enough to get the concept, to integrate the concept. But guess what? It's progress. Because if his mind was at least open enough to hear the words, the truth cannot be unheard. And if that ground is at least somewhat fertile, that seed will nestle there and eventually sprout. So, with that being said, let's go back to the phones. Area code 480, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, this is Nathan again, and I don't know how long my phone is going to last here, and I apologize for any background sound. I mentioned aquaponics at the beginning there, and I was wondering, I have a website, but I'm too embarrassed to put it out. I still need to fill out, put in all the meat and potatoes into it. But there's a family. There's a website that I would like to share, and I was wondering if it'd be okay if I could put it out there.
Sure.
Okay, it's gardenpool.org. A family that turned their pool into an aquaponic system, and they offer plenty of free resources out to anybody who wants to come and check out their website as far as turning their own their own land, no matter how small it is, and utilize aquaponics. And aside from that, man, I hope you take calls down the road here, because I really do think that my website will have a lot to offer, and I just need to give it out after I really get it going here.
No problem. Thanks for the info. And yes, we will be taking calls on future shows. Absolutely. I just did not take them during the non-supportive dominators because I really wanted to hammer home the concepts in that section uninterrupted. So calls will be a regular part of the show as we go forward. Area code 774. You're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
Greetings, Mark.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, it's Raider X. How you doing, buddy?
Brother, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the speakers for the Free Your Mind 2 conference, Raider X. Welcome to the show.
I am honored to be here. Great show. I'm obviously a huge fan of you, Mark. Thank the Lord Buddha for Mark Passio.
I love your show, brother, as well, on American Freedom Radio. Give a plug, give your website, please. Tell the listeners.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we actually have a new time slot. With the new time starting next week for the Middle Chamber on AmericanFreedomRadio.com is 6 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Okay.
So we're actually 2 hours earlier for all my listeners out there. Just show up 2 hours earlier, and it's the same great show.
Awesome. Give them your website as well.
MiddleChamberFX.wordpress.com is the new URL. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it.
Middle Chamber FX. MiddleChamberFX.wordpress.com. All right, great. All right, brother. I know you're going to have something.
Dominators.
I know you're going to have something profound for us.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Mark, your campaign on the non-supported dominators is commendable, my friend. I was first turned on to this from John Lash and his work, Not in His Image. He first pointed out the victim-perpetrator paradigm, which the Abrahamic religious infection produces in the human psyche. And it's a transgenerational, multicultural imprintation program, and you're so familiar with it, I know.
Yes, very similar to the abuse victim cycle as I've described it on the show, yes.
Yeah, and anybody who heard last night my show with Joseph Atwill, where we talked about Caesar's Messiah and the Roman conspiracy to invent Jesus and invent the Christian religion as a means. Religion, as we know, is a mental virus, a tool of the elite. And I commend you, sir, for being out there in the front lines, going into the streets and confronting the police. In my position, as you know, a member of fraternal orders, I've come into close contact with police. I've sat in lodge in a higher rank in the lodge line than the police. So that's always been interesting, because then we go out into the public and interact.
Right.
And my unique position, it's always very surreal. And I've been very confrontational, as you know. The cops, the local pigs. I mean, that's what I got to call them, because they're mostly asleep. They're like swine. They're asleep. And the local cops, they lack the education. All of them are master masons. And in the fellowcraft degrees in the Blue Lodge system, it is all about the 7 liberal arts, the trivium and the quadrivium. That's what you're supposed to be doing. It's educating yourself.
Yes.
And it's cultivating wisdom and awareness.
That's right. I've said on this show in the past, the entirety of the true esoteric tradition of Freemasonry ultimately lies in degree 2, the fellowcraft degree. It can be said that is a microcosm of the entire tradition. And I feel that almost every Mason that is out there that is calling themselves a Master Mason or any degree beyond that actually should never have been passed. Because passing is what we refer to when we talk about obtaining degree number 2, the fellowcraft. Entered his first degree, passed his second, and mastered his third. There are most of the Masons out there should never have been passed because they do not grasp the lesson at all of degree number 2, which again I feel is the heart of all Freemasonry, true Freemasonry.
Absolutely, and the original initiatory system was a 7-year process from initiate to fellow of the craft.
That's correct.
Or journeyman. The second degree was a journeyman, like in the local, the modern trades. They use that term journeyman. It's the
Which
same.
would you not think
And
would be a fair assessment to say how much time would be required to take really in the level of information and knowledge that is required to process to really change your mind? That sounds about a fair assessment. And now it's done in what? A day?
Well,
if that?
In weeks. In weeks
maybe.
In the Blue Lodge system, yeah. It's really not very not comprehensive at all.
And not
so
true to the
I don't want to take up
original
all
intent.
the time.
Sure.
But Mark, I wanted to just to throw out there. Listen, I've been really appreciating the most recent series that you're working with, and I stand with relation to the subject of carnism, which I am both intrigued and convicted by. Thank you very much. Sure, but I have to say, in fact, you have diminished my carnivorous experiences. So,
I apologize.
I'm sure you appreciate that. Well, no, you actually don't. I'm sure you appreciate that.
Yes. I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
That's what I mean. But it's the same process that you yourself, have gone through. And but what I wanted to ask, Mark, because it keeps coming up in my thought process. I'm listening to what you're saying, and I wanted to get your take on this.
Sure.
My question to you, and probably some of the listeners might appreciate this, is that, Mark, with relation to the idea that you put forth in the most recent shows, probably 2 shows ago, you spoke about the etheric universe, the energetic universe in which we all exist within, right, and how the suffering of a living thing within this etheric realm has an effect on all living things within the realm.
Yes.
And you mentioned how the idea of carnism, the idea of our awareness of suffering and then the reception of the flesh as a form of sustenance as a result of suffering, we actually continue the suffering and the fear that's produced. And so what I wanted to ask you, Mark, was, because I can really understand that, and that is very compelling and convicting for myself to think about. And I think there's a lot of merit in what you say about the effect it can have on humanity to ingest fear and then to produce it once again and continue with it.
And so I know that would resonate with someone like yourself because you are studying the occult aspects to creation, that which is hidden or is not easily revealed to the sight, which takes a lot more introspection and deep study and work with these concepts to really bring it to the surface so that it can be seen. That's the difference between one who is an occultist who studies the hidden laws of nature versus those who do not and think that it's all about just the physical level of our existence. So I think that's
a great point,
very applicable. Yes.
Because I'm already aware of that, and I'm already thinking on those terms. And so, what I immediately the thought process, it takes me to the idea of what of the animal kingdom, Mark? What of the predator-prey dynamic? How does that relate to what we understand with regards to the moral implications of the awareness of fear?
Right. Okay. So I'll bring up 2 things regarding this, and that's a phenomenal question. In natural law, when people say, well, animals eat other animals, so why shouldn't humans do it? It seems like it's natural. Human beings, because of the complexity and the different nature, the higher nature of their consciousness, and their ability to think and reason and comprehend and delve into the laws of nature and understand them. So their ability to reason and understand ultimately holds a human being to a higher standard when it comes to moral law than animals are held. Now, that isn't to say that when an animal, eats another animal, that's wrong for them. We are held to a higher standard because of our higher consciousness. So natural law is going to have an effect upon us for doing that. There is also another consideration to take into account when it comes to this, and something that has been hinted at in ancient writings, that it is very possible that perhaps even in the quite ancient past, or maybe even not in the so distant ancient past, but in the near ancient past, that this even was not always the case for animals. People believe in this linear progression, that species cannot fall from a place that they once were, from a higher place they once were. We have this erroneous notion through archaeology and anthropology and other sciences who haven't really seen the full picture in scope about how cycles of time work, okay? And people think we're moving in a linear progression from less advanced to more advanced, and nothing could be further from the truth. We have seen higher places of our civilization, we have seen lower, and time moves in cyclical progressions that are not, we're not bound to those cycles, but they are tendencies, and our choices will ultimately determine what we experience as a result of those tendencies and how we react to those ebbs and flows in time, of those cycles of time. There is a high degree of probability and a lot of evidence through some ancient records that animals were not even always at the base level of consciousness that they were at, and perhaps did not engage in the types of practices that they engage in what we call the natural kingdom, at some past moment in time. So animals may not even have always been like this. We're looking at their current condition and just accepting the notion just because we see it like this, and for as long as we've been paying attention or keeping records in the modern world, believe it has always been like this, and therefore that is how it always should be. Again, this directly relates with worldview. What you believe we are or are capable of becoming. And I talked about one of the defenses for carnism, or justifications for it, as the we are argument. And you'll hear people saying this all the time. We are hunter-gatherers. That's what human beings are. No, that's a condition that human beings were experiencing, and actually really even aren't experiencing that except in isolated pockets of the world today. We are not anything. We can be what we want to create ourselves into. Other than the makers of right and wrong, we can basically be anything we want. That's not, man cannot ever make that. But man can evolve and not be bound to certain practices or ways of being in the world that he may have once bound himself into, or environmental conditions may have temporarily bound him to engage in. We are not anything. That's the whole thing to keep in mind here. That's the worldview. If you're stuck in the worldview that the current condition is eternal, you might as well hang up your hat now and walk out and give up. And why bother saying a word, talking to anybody, trying to affect any change? Accept your situation, because right now you're a prisoner. So could we say human beings are prisoners and that's just eternal and you must accept that and be like that forever? No, it's ridiculous. It's nonsense. You have a choice. Choice is what's keeping us in the prison of our own design, of our own making. We can choose something different if enough of us want it. The same is true when it comes to what we call nature. What most people are calling human nature has nothing whatsoever to do with what the real essence of humanity is. It's the current condition that they are attached to and identified with and think can never be changed. They think that it just always was, is now, always will be, and it has to be accepted. And that is a poisoned worldview, attitude, and way of looking at the world. So I don't even look at it as animals have always been like this. I think animals were once at a higher level of consciousness and didn't do this to each other. How about that? I think we were once at a higher level of consciousness, didn't engage in carnism. We're now at a low level of consciousness, and we have an opportunity to move to a higher level of consciousness based upon our choices and our consciousness, what we can perceive, what we can become aware of that is taking place within us and around us. And we can choose at any given time, once we've developed that consciousness, to be something other than what we currently are. So those two things together, that we're held to a higher standard because of our capability of understanding the realm of the unseen and the laws of right and wrong, we're held to a higher standard than the animal kingdom, who is not capable of reasoning at the level that we are. That's number one aspect to the answer to your question. And then number two is that, people believe that, this is just the nature of things. This is the, quote, natural order in their mind. And I believe that they're fundamentally mistaken. That's a fundamental axiomatic flaw on their part, not to see in the grand picture of time, things have not always been as we see them now.
Oh, that's a great point, Mark. And the funny thing is that one of your listeners in the chat, Beren, mentioned it in the idea of moralistic evolution, the idea of moral evolution, and what you said with regards to ancient beliefs triggered a thought in my thinking was the ancient belief that the animal kingdom, each species has an oversoul, which governs that species of the animal kingdom,
yes.
which changes the dynamic of predator-prey. There's no awareness of suffering as with humanity.
Yes,
we are aware of suffering
and acutely aware of it. Yes,
and it makes it's quite a distinction.
Absolutely,
and it's a moral distinction. And so that's great. I'm so that really answers the question, Mark.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate the question. I think that's profound, and I hope that will help clarify some of that in the minds of listeners. So I really appreciate you calling in with that question.
No problem. Great show, Mark, and I'll let you get on. I'm sure you've got other callers. Thank you for your time, and everyone just just to make note, 2 hours earlier next week, we got Jan Irving coming in to continue his research. So we're really going to have an exciting show. Thanks, Mark.
Brother, thanks so much for what you do, sir.
All right, sir. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Frater X, one of the speakers at coming up at the Free Your Mind Conference in 2013. All right, let's go to another caller. Let's take a call from Philadelphia. Area code 215. You're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
Hello, is this me? Am I on?
Yes, Tim.
Hey, what's up, Mark?
Tim Smith, ladies and gentlemen, one of the organizers for the Free Your Mind Conference. Welcome, Tim. Thanks for calling in, man. What do you have for us?
Hey, I just wanted to mention first that it's great to hear all your callers. It gives me some much-needed positivity and optimism, hearing these people, these initiates on the path of consciousness.
I've said it before. This show has the best callers of any show on the internet, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree, man. Before I got into the topic I wanted to cover, I just wanted to reach out to your first caller. I think his name is Nathan.
Yes.
I just feel deeply for him because he said his daughter had leukemia.
Yes.
And I just wanted to recommend to him a couple movies, like the movie The Beautiful Truth. It's about the Gerson therapy, the natural therapy.
It's a good one.
And also Cancer, the Forbidden Cures, and Cancer is Curable Now. It just covers the cancer conspiracy, and from what I've looked into, the cancer thing is just part of the eugenics agenda to take down the populations to a lower amount of numbers. So I've been personally involved in exposing this conspiracy, and I just wanted to recommend those movies to Nathan.
Absolutely. Give him the titles one more time.
Okay, so it's The Beautiful Truth, covers the Gerson therapy. Then there's also The Forbidden Cures, and also Cancer, The Forbidden Cures, and then also Cancer is Curable Now.
Great. I've seen all three of those, and they're phenomenal documentaries, all of them.
Yes, and
I know that's one of your big fundamental issues that you work toward getting out there, that there's alternative treatments out there to cancer. Cancer can be treated holistically, can be treated, through, we can prevent it through what we do with our diet. And you reach out there to people who are suffering from this, horrible condition, on a day-to-day basis. That's one of the big aspects of your work. So thanks for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome. I wanted to, we went out to the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure, and we went out there and handed out information and everything to people. And if people want to watch those videos, Mark's in the video too, they could go to YouTube/Signs of the Time Media, and that's my YouTube page, and they could watch the video called The Cancer Crusade.
All right, give that one again. It's youtube.com/Signs of the Time Media, right?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Signs of the Time. Signs, plural, time, singular. Signs of the Time Media. Yep, great.
Cool, man. So I wanted to cover a topic of the non-supportive dominators.
Sure.
I kind of wanted to fill in something here that I'm not sure if you talked about.
Yes, go right ahead.
First of all, I want to mention that not only do we not want to support dominators, but we don't want to support ourselves being dominators, because sometimes when we all get a little bit of power, we kind of fall into that dominators ourselves.
That's right. And that's the whole issue, that people take down one system of control and then they become the controllers and erect a new one. You know, we have to take down the system of control and replace it with nothing, replace it with no control except self-control, meaning working with yourself to understand the difference between right and wrong and then choose right action over wrong action. That involves discipline and self-control. That's the only kind of control that's real. You're in control of your own thoughts, your own emotions, and your own actions, and exactly nothing else. So that's a great point, Tim.
Yeah,
we can't become the dominator ourselves, yes.
Yeah, it's what you call the My Freedom movement, where, you know, everybody just wants to kind of change the system for their own belief system instead of just letting people be free, you know?
That's right.
So, get caught up in that. But I'm not sure if you covered this aspect when it comes to the non-supportive dominators, but I find it very important in understanding the causal factors of how people have gotten this way, and how and why people support the very same people that enslaved them. Me personally, I find it hard to understand why people would want to be controlled by other people, you know, because we're all just people, and why would you want somebody else to be just a person just like you?
Yes. Oh, I touched on it a little, and I think it all comes back down to the dynamic of personal responsibility. You think about it. A master-slave relationship, in any engagements with anyone who may be outside of that relationship, let's just talk about one master and one slave. And let's say the master is interacting with another group of people who aren't his slaves. You know, they may be masters of other slaves or something. Would the other people that are going to go and interact with the master go and ask the slave anything? Interact with him on any level that means anything? You know, other than maybe, you know, give him a suggestion or a command? No. He's not interested in what the slave thinks. He knows that the slave has abdicated his personal responsibility, or at least attempted to the master. And the master is saying, I'm your owner, you're my property. And if the slave accepts that, he's basically saying, you know, the master does all my thinking for me. He clothes me, he feeds me, he gives me shelter, he does, you know, I do whatever he says that I have to do. But ultimately, you know, once that obligation is fulfilled to him, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to worry about anything for myself. I don't have to be self-reliant. I don't have to make my own decisions. He tells me what to think. He tells me how to dress. He tells me what to do on a daily basis, you know, and that's it. And, you know, none of those decisions, they're all out of my hands, and they belong to the master. You know, even in Civil War slavery period in America, you look at the dynamic from studying it in writings and letters, etc., that were left behind, and you realize the slaves that were kept, a lot of the black slaves that were kept in America enjoyed the condition. They, as I understand how absolutely horrifying that sounds in people's minds, but many slaves did not want to be freed, and many slaves, after they were freed in this country, they wanted to go back to the plantations, where they looked at it as they had it easier than being free and then having to make a way in life for themselves. And that's also difficult, because guaranteed they didn't set them free with much money, you know, and the system was still controlled by money then, and they had to fend for themselves with very little resources at their disposal. So most people wanted to go back into dependency, into total dependency. So I'm not in any way blaming them for that condition. Please don't take it as such. I'm saying that even when they were being held and viciously beaten and kept in deplorable conditions, many of them accepted it because they did not know any other way of life. They came up in a system like that. Many of them had come up from the time they were young, raised in a system like that. And that's our condition globally, that we're raised in a system of slavery, and so many people, since they don't know anything else, they're comfortable with it. And somebody telling them this is slavery, here's what freedom looks like, they say, oh my God, that's what freedom looks like, you can keep it. They want to be dependent. I also addressed this issue in the speech at the end of the Fed rally, is that so many people are hopelessly dependent on the system, as they say in the Matrix. You know, they're so inured. You know, they have been so beaten and downtrodden that they are completely dependent on the system, and they've grown to like it. They like their dependency because it means they don't have to make their own hard decisions, they don't have to be self-reliant, and ultimately they can pretend to abdicate their personal responsibility to someone else.
Absolutely, Mark. A key factor that I have picked up on that causes the condition of people to hurt their dominators is the way people parent their children.
Yes.
I blame it a lot on parenting skills or the lack of parenting.
Yes, absolutely.
Parents treat their children as property, as if it's something that they own.
Right.
And that their job is to pull a child until that child becomes birth, instead of actually raising their own children in consciousness.
Right. You got it.
They keep low-based mindset of, reactive mindset where it's just call and response.
Exactly. That's a brilliant point, and this goes right down to the root causal factors. We raise our children like we own them. You know, at a macrocosmic level, the state's treating us like they own us. You know, do this because we say you have to do it or else. And that's how a lot of parents go about parenting, so-called parenting their children. That isn't raising anybody. Raising someone involves helping them to understand the why. That's where all the power is at. You want to empower somebody, you have to help them to understand the why of any given situation or problem. And this way, they know why they should act a certain way. What are the consequences and repercussions of choosing unwisely? That's what education is, real education is all about. And it comes from the Latin, educere. Educere means to lead out from, okay? What you're leading someone out of is darkness and ignorance. You're leading them out of the darkness and into the light if there's a real education. Conversely, if there's an indoctrination, that's all based on fear, and it's all based on my way or the highway type thinking, which is all control-based. You know, you do this because I said so. Why? How many kids, the two words kids come into this world saying, ladies and gentlemen, the two words that kids, you know, maybe they'll say mama or daddy, first words, but I guarantee you the words that they will be saying in their childhood more than any other words, here they are, is no and why. That's what children come into the world saying. And then we breed that right out of them. We indoctrinate that right out of them. And parents do that most of all. Don't say no. Don't ask why. Just do it because I said so. If that's the thinking of a parent, you're going to raise your kid to be a good little slave to the state. So great point, Tim.
Yeah, kids always say why, and parents just always say because I said so. And I think it's important to explain the why, so then the children actually understand why. Because if you tell them why, you're going to have two different reactions in kids, I think. One, the child's going to lose respect for you because you don't ever give them a good reason why.
Yeah, you didn't take the time. You didn't take the time to explain your knowledge, your understanding to them. That's what parenting is all about, is spending time with your children to help them develop understanding that you currently have. You know, sadly, the part of the problem is so many parents don't have that understanding that it's the blind, not raising the blind, you know. So go ahead, continue with your point. But yeah, I mean, just, definitely brilliant and very apropos to the situation for sure.
Yeah, so you either create a kid that has no respect, or you'll create a kid that's an obedient slave.
Right.
And then grows up to be part of this society, and this is why we have this problem we have.
You got it.
So
absolutely.
basically, So basically, I have a couple of things.
Sure.
Don't be a because I said so parent. Don't call kids names and say what is wrong with you, or what are you stupid, or something like that, or don't say I'm.
Yeah, because that goes into the subconscious, and then they begin to believe it about themselves. Then they stop trying because, oh well, I'm stupid and I've always been like that. I probably always will be like that, and why should I bother to try to educate myself? You know. You see that with so many people, that's what they've been told, and that becomes subconscious programming that is continuously reinforced through their lives. Another great point. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, I was going to be a more positive parent instead of a negative one, and just tell them things like, you disappointed me because I know you know better. And, children, they always do know better. They just need you to be there to tell them that, to be there. Their positive guidance system, So,
exactly. And again, that's really what parenting is all about. And that's what this is all about, is education. You hear the intro, the outro music coming up. Tim, phenomenal points. Other callers who are on the line, sorry we didn't get a chance to get to you, but that's all the time.